Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. Her footsteps echoed against the crystal walls that reached high above her head. The building was designed to make visitors feel small, and she knew it. Every alien species that built something here wanted to show their power and importance. Lisa had been Earth's representative to the Council for 8 years now. She had seen the debates, the arguments, and the decisions that shaped life across the galaxy. Today felt different, though. The air seemed heavier, and the usual chatter among the alien delegates was quieter than normal. She entered the main chamber, where over 800 representatives from different worlds and species gathered. The chamber was shaped like a giant bowl with seats arranged in circles going down toward the center. At the bottom stood the speaking platform where each representative would make their case. The Zephyrian section was buzzing with activity. High Chancellor Vexstar stood among his fellow delegates, his blue-scaled skin gleaming under the chamber lights. His forearms moved quickly as he spoke to the others around him. Lisa could see the excitement in his large yellow eyes. She had learned to read Zephyrian body language during her years here, and she knew Vexstar was pleased about something. Lisa took her seat in the human section. It was a small area with only 12 seats. Most other species had sections with hundreds of seats. The humans were outnumbered by nearly every other species in the galaxy. That was just how things were. The session began with the usual formal procedures. Each species representative stood and announced their presence. The Vrex Syndicate had 400 delegates present. The Altarians had 600. The Centauri Federation brought 700. When Lisa stood to announce Earth's presence, she simply said 12 human representatives present and sat back down. High Chancellor Vexstar requested permission to speak first. The chamber fell silent as he walked down to the central platform. His voice carried easily through the chamber without any need for amplification. Fellow members of the Galactic Council, he began. Today we must address a growing concern that threatens the stability of our peaceful galaxy. The human species has been expanding too rapidly and too aggressively across space. Lisa felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had expected this, but hearing it still made her angry. Vexstar continued. In the past 50 years, humans have established colonies on over 200 worlds. Their population growth is beyond what any civilized species should maintain. They reproduce at rates that strain the resources of entire star systems. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lisa looked around and saw many alien heads nodding in approval. Furthermore, Vexstar said, raising his voice slightly, their unpredictable nature makes them dangerous neighbors. They solve problems through conflict rather than discussion. They build weapons instead of art. They consume resources instead of preserving them. The murmurs grew louder. Lisa could hear representatives from dozens of species expressing their support for Vexstar's words. Therefore, the Zephyrian continued, I propose new restrictions on human expansion. From this day forward, humans should only be permitted to colonize worlds that no other species wants. Barren worlds, dead worlds, worlds with no resources or strategic value. The chamber erupted in discussion. Lisa could see representatives turning to each other, debating the proposal. Some seemed uncertain, but most appeared to support the idea. Lisa stood up and walked down to the platform. The chamber gradually quieted as she approached the speaking area. High Chancellor Vexstar, she said, her voice clear and steady, may I ask what specific incidents have led to these accusations against humanity? Vexstar's yellow eyes narrowed slightly. The incidents are well documented, Ambassador Carter. Human colonies have expanded into regions claimed by other species. Human traders have undercut established trade routes. Human researchers have refused to share their discoveries with the galactic community. Lisa nodded slowly. I see. And have any formal complaints been filed against human activities through the proper council channels? Formal complaints are not necessary when the pattern of behavior is so obvious, Vexstar replied. I understand, Lisa said. So these restrictions are being proposed based on general concerns rather than specific violations of galactic law. The chamber was completely silent now. Every representative was watching the exchange between the human and the Zephyrian. The concerns are valid regardless of formal procedures, Vextar said, his voice growing sharper. The human species poses a threat to galactic stability that must be addressed. Lisa looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. She had spent 8 years trying to build relationships with these beings. She had attended their cultural events, learned their languages, and tried to find common ground. Now she realized it had all been pointless. "Thank you, High Chancellor," she said simply. "I understand your position." She walked back to her seat. Without another word, the debate continued for hours. Representative after representative stood to speak in favor of the restrictions. Some suggested even harsher measures. A few called for limiting human population growth directly. Others wanted to ban human military vessels from certain sectors of space. Only a handful of species spoke against the proposal. The Deltan Republic expressed mild concern about the precedent such restrictions might set. The Tau Collective suggested that negotiation might be more effective than limitation, but their voices were lost in the overwhelming support for action against humanity. When the vote was finally called, Lisa was not surprised by the result. 847 species voted in favor of the restrictions. Only humanity voted against them. The chamber celebrated as the results were announced. Lisa could see the relief and satisfaction on alien faces throughout the room. They had solved their human problem. High Chancellor Vextar returned to the platform to make a final statement. The Galactic Council has spoken with one voice today. These restrictions will ensure peace and stability for all civilized species. Lisa stood once more and walked to the platform. The chamber fell silent again, though this time the silence felt different. It felt final. "The human delegation has heard the will of the Council," she said. "We understand the Council's position completely. Earth will comply with these new restrictions." She paused and looked around the chamber one last time. "We want to thank the Council for making humanity's path forward so clear." Lisa walked back to her seat and began gathering her papers. The other human delegates did the same. Within minutes, the human section was empty. As Lisa left the chamber, she heard the alien representatives already discussing other matters. The human problem had been solved and they could move on to more important things. Lisa walked through the crystal halls one last time, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. She had work to do and calls to make. The Council had indeed made humanity's path forward very clear. It was time to go home. Dr. Marcus Lee stood in the observation deck of Luna Research Station, watching Earth rise slowly over the lunar horizon. The blue and white marble looked peaceful from here, but he knew better. Down on that world, millions of people were waiting for his team to finish their work. Marcus had been leading Project Exodus for 12 years now. The project had started as a simple research initiative into advanced propulsion systems. Over time, it had grown into something much bigger. Something that could change everything for humanity. Behind him, the sound of keyboards and quiet conversations filled the research lab. His team of 60 scientists and engineers worked around the clock on the most important project in human history. They had no idea that today would be the day their work finally mattered. "Dr. Lee," called out Sarah Mitchell, his lead physicist, "the quantum fold calculations are complete. We can now fold spacetime across distances of up to 50,000 light-years." Marcus turned from the window. Sarah stood beside a massive computer display showing complex mathematical equations. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy bun and her lab coat was wrinkled from working long hours. 50,000 light-years, Marcus repeated. "That puts us well beyond the galactic rim." "Far beyond?" Sarah confirmed. "The furthest any known species has ever traveled is maybe 5,000 light-years from the galactic center. We could reach places they have never even imagined." Marcus walked over to the central command console where Tony Martinez was coordinating with teams across the solar system. Tony had been managing the logistics of Project Exodus since its early days. He knew every detail of every facility and every person involved. Tony, what is the status of the construction teams? Marcus asked Tony. Looked up from his screens. Captain Thompson reports that the first wave of colony ships will be ready in 6 weeks. Admiral Parker says the defense fleet can be ready in 4 weeks. All deep space facilities are operating at full capacity, Marcus nodded. The timing was perfect. Almost too perfect. His communication device beeped with an incoming message. The display showed it was from President Helen Davis on Earth. Marcus accepted the call immediately. Dr. Lee, President Davis said, her voice clear despite the distance. I assume you have heard about the council vote. Yes, Madam President. Ambassador Carter sent word an hour ago. Then you know that Project Exodus is no longer just a research project. It is now our only option. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. We are ready, Madam President. The technology works and the ships are nearly complete. How long do we have? 6 weeks for the first wave. 3 months for complete evacuation if needed. President Davis was quiet for a moment. 3 months. To move the entire human race. Can it be done? It can be done, Marcus said with confidence. We have been preparing for this possibility for years. After the call ended, Marcus gathered his senior staff. Sarah Mitchell came from the physics lab. Tony Martinez left his logistics station. Dr. Amy Chun joined them from the engineering section. Captain Jake Morrison had arrived from the test flight facility just an hour earlier. The council has voted, Marcus announced. The restrictions on human expansion are now official. Project Exodus is authorized to proceed to full implementation. The room was silent for a long moment. These people had worked for years on theoretical solutions to problems they hoped would never need solving. Now those problems were real. What is our timeline? Asked Dr. Chun. 6 weeks for the first colony ships to depart. 3 months for full evacuation if necessary. Captain Morrison leaned forward. My test flights have proven the full drives work perfectly. We can reach the target systems in days instead of decades. The construction teams are ready, Tony added. We have been moving materials and equipment to the outer system for 2 years now. The aliens never noticed because we use standard freight haulers on normal trade routes. Sarah pulled up a star map on the main display. We have identified 47 star systems beyond the galactic rim that can support human colonies. All of them are rich in resources and completely uninhabited. Marcus studied the map. Red dots marked the target systems scattered across a region of space larger than the entire known galaxy. The aliens have no idea these systems even exist. They have never explored beyond the rim, Sarah confirmed. Their ships are too slow and their technology too limited. They think space ends where the galaxy ends. Dr. Chun activated another display showing ship construction progress. The first wave consists of 50 colony ships, each capable of carrying 100,000 people plus all necessary equipment and supplies. The second wave will be twice as large. What about Earth itself? Marcus asked. Tony answered, President Davis has authorized full evacuation protocols. Every human world will be emptied within 3 months. We leave nothing behind except empty buildings. Captain Morrison stood and walked to the star map. The beauty of this plan is that we are not running away. We are expanding into territory that is richer and more promising than anything in the current galaxy. The aliens think they are limiting us, Sarah said. But they are actually freeing us to find something better. Marcus felt a smile cross his face. They have no idea what they have done. Over the next several hours, the team worked to finalize the evacuation protocols. Each person had specific responsibilities that would affect millions of lives. There was no room for error and no time for second thoughts. Messages went out to every human world and space station. The communications were coded to look like routine administrative updates. Only people with proper clearance would understand their true meaning. Captain Amy Thompson received her orders at the asteroid belt shipyards. Her construction crews had been building the colony ships in secret for 3 years. Now they had 6 weeks to complete the final preparations. Admiral Chris Parker got his message at the Outer System defense stations. His fleet had been training for this moment since the project began. They were ready to protect the evacuation. Ships during their journey to the New Worlds. Governor Kate Johnson read her orders on New California. Her entire colony would need to be evacuated within 2 months. Every person, every piece of equipment, every valuable resource would be loaded onto the transport ships. Director Ryan Murphy received his instructions at the Mars Industrial Complex. His manufacturing facilities would be the last to shut down, continuing to produce supplies for the evacuation fleet until the final ships departed. As the sun set over Luna Research Station, Marcus stood again at the observation window. Earth turned slowly below him, home to 12 billion humans who had no idea. Their world was about to change forever. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem with their vote. They had no idea they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, freedom to become something greater than they had ever imagined. The quiet exodus was about to begin. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova as his ship moved through the asteroid belt toward the hidden shipyards. The massive construction facilities had been built inside hollowed-out asteroids over the past 3 years. From the outside, they looked like ordinary mining operations. No alien patrol had ever bothered to investigate. Engineer Betty Rodriguez worked at her console, monitoring the quantum fold drive systems. The new technology was unlike anything humanity had used before. Instead of traveling through space, the ships would fold space itself, allowing them to step across vast distances in moments. Fold drive is operating at full capacity, Betty reported. We can initiate the first jump on your command, Captain. Navigator Sam Collins studied the star charts at his station. The map showed regions of space that existed beyond the edge of the known galaxy. Human exploration probes had been secretly mapping these areas for years. While the aliens believed space ended at the galactic rim, course plotted to the Kepler sector, Sam announced. Distance is 47,000 light-years. Estimated fold time is 6 hours. Jake nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain. All hands prepare for a quantum fold jump. We are about to make history. The Terra Nova was the first ship to depart, leading a convoy of 50 massive colony vessels. Each ship carried 100,000 people along with everything needed to build new worlds. Behind them, hundreds more ships waited for their turn to leave. Betty initiated the fold sequence. Space around the ship began to shimmer and bend. The stars outside the viewport stretched into long lines of light. Then everything went dark for a moment before the stars reappeared in completely different positions. Fold jump complete, Betty announced. All systems operating normally. Sam checked his instruments. Position confirmed. We are now in the Kepler sector, approximately 47,000 light-years from Earth. Jake looked at the main display, showing their new location. They were further from home than any human had ever traveled. Around them, the colony ships were completing their own fold jumps, appearing out of empty space like ghosts becoming real. Begin scanning for suitable worlds, Jake ordered. The survey teams went to work immediately. The Kepler sector contained 17 star systems, each with multiple planets. The advanced probes had already identified several worlds perfect for human colonization. Back in the Milky Way galaxy, the evacuation continued in secret. On Earth, President Helen Davis met with her security chief, Agent Frank Miller, in the Situation Room beneath the White House. All major cities are reporting normal activity, Frank said, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The aliens have no idea what we are doing. What about the alien observers? President Davis asked. They are seeing exactly what we want them to see. Regular traffic patterns, normal communications, standard industrial output. Our deception protocols are working perfectly. President Davis walked to the large display showing Earth's continents. How many people have we moved so far? 50 million in the first wave. Another 100 million are preparing for departure in the next 2 weeks. And the aliens suspect nothing? Frank shook his head. They think we are complying with their restrictions. They see us reducing our deep space activities and pulling back from contested systems. They believe we are accepting our new limitations. Meanwhile, on the Outer Rim research stations, Dr. Nina Foster supervised the transfer of humanity's entire scientific database to the colony fleets. Every piece of research, every technological advancement, every bit of knowledge accumulated over centuries was being copied and prepared for transport. "The final data packages are ready," reported her assistant, Dr. Kevin Walsh. "We have compressed the entire human knowledge base into portable storage units that can be loaded onto any ship." Nina looked at the massive server farms that contained humanity's collective intelligence. "Make sure nothing is left behind. When we leave, the aliens should find empty computers and blank storage devices." "What about the physical research facilities?" Kevin asked. "Agent Miller's teams will handle those. Everything of value will be removed or destroyed. The aliens will inherit nothing but empty buildings." In the asteroid belt, Captain Amy Thompson watched as the last of the colony ships completed their final preparations. Her construction crews had worked without rest for 6 weeks to prepare the massive vessels. Each ship was a self-contained world capable of supporting human life for decades. "All ships report ready for departure," announced her operations manager, Lieutenant Steve Parker. "The second wave can begin full jumps within the hour." Amy nodded with satisfaction. "Signal Admiral Parker. Tell him the fleet is ready." "Admiral." Chris Parker received the message aboard his command ship New Horizon. His defense fleet had been secretly patrolling the outer system for weeks, ensuring that no alien ships witnessed the evacuation. So far, their luck had held. "Begin the second wave departure," he ordered. "All ships maintain communication silence until they reach the target systems." One by one, the colony ships activated their full drives and disappeared into the void. Each ship carried another 100,000 humans further from their birth world than any of them had ever imagined possible. The evacuation was not limited to Earth. Every human colony throughout the galaxy was quietly emptying itself. On New California, Governor Kate Johnson oversaw the loading of the final transport ships. "The last civilian transports are departing now," reported her aide, Commander Lisa Brown. "The industrial equipment will be loaded onto the cargo ships over the next week." Kate looked out at the empty streets of New Angeles, once home to 10 million people. "Make sure we get everything. Every tool, every machine, every piece of technology. Leave nothing the aliens can use." On Mars, Director Ryan Murphy shut down the last of the manufacturing facilities. The Red Planet had been humanity's industrial heart for over a century. Now it would become just another empty world. "All production equipment has been loaded," his chief engineer, Dr. Carol Davis, reported. "The final ships are ready for departure." Ryan took one last look at the sprawling industrial complexes that had supplied half the galaxy with advanced technology. "Execute the sterilization protocols. When we leave, make sure nothing remains that could benefit the aliens." The evacuation continued for 3 months. Ship after ship loaded with humans and their possessions departed for the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. The aliens never noticed, because humans had become experts at being invisible. Trade routes that had carried human goods for decades simply went quiet. Research stations that had produced breakthrough discoveries for centuries stopped transmitting data. Manufacturing facilities that had supplied the galaxy with essential products shut down without explanation. The few aliens who investigated found only empty buildings and abandoned equipment. Security recordings showed humans packing their belongings and leaving in orderly groups. There were no signs of panic or forced evacuation. The humans had simply decided to go somewhere else. As the last ships prepared for departure, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova in the Kepler sector. Around him, the first human colonies were already taking shape on worlds richer and more beautiful than Earth had ever been. "Signal from Earth," Sam Collins reported. "President Davis confirms the final evacuation ships are departing now." Jake smiled as he looked at the thriving colonies spreading across multiple star systems. The aliens had tried to limit humanity's expansion and instead had freed them to find paradise, the quiet exodus was complete. Trade Minister Kexival of the Krillian Empire stared at his computer screen in confusion. The monthly reports from his trade division made no sense. According to the data, human cargo ships had simply stopped arriving at Krillian ports 3 weeks ago. "Assistant Morden," he called to his aide, "are these shipping reports correct?" Morden rushed over with a data tablet. "Yes, Trade Minister. We have received no human cargo deliveries in 21 days. Our medical supply warehouses are nearly empty." Kexival felt his 4 hearts begin to beat faster. The Krillian medical system depended entirely on human-manufactured medicines and equipment. Without them, thousands of his people would die within months. "Contact the human trade representative immediately," he ordered. "We have been trying for weeks, sir. The human embassy on Krillia Prime is not responding to our messages." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds. The Vrex Syndicate's mining operations had ground to a halt when their human-operated equipment stopped working. The Altarian agricultural systems were failing without human-designed fertilizers and pest control chemicals. Hi, Chancellor Vexstar of the Zephyrian Republic was meeting with his economic advisors when the crisis reports began flooding in. His chief economist, Sub-Chancellor Rololtek, stood before a display showing cascading economic failures across Zephyrian space. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," Rololtek reported. 60% of our manufacturing capacity has shut down due to lack of human-supplied components. Our pharmaceutical industry has completely collapsed." Vexstar's yellow eyes narrowed. "This is impossible. Humans are a primitive species. They cannot be this important to our economy." "The evidence suggests otherwise, High Chancellor. Our analysis shows that human companies provided essential materials for nearly every major industry in our territory." On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species were reporting similar problems. The chamber that had been so confident just months earlier now buzzed with panic and confusion. Council President Zarthel, a tall being from the hegemony, called for order. "We must understand the scope of this situation. How many species are reporting disruptions?" Secretary General Wexmar consulted his records. 214 species have filed emergency reports. The disruptions affect everything from basic manufacturing to advanced medical research. The Centauri Federation Representative Ambassador Veltar stood to address the council. "Our entire communications network is failing. We have discovered that the quantum encryption systems were designed and maintained by human technicians. Without them, we cannot maintain secure communications between our worlds." Similar reports came from every corner of the galaxy. The Tau Collective's transportation systems had stopped working when human-made navigation computers went offline. The Deltan Republic's energy grid was failing. Because human engineers had designed and maintained the fusion reactors, High Chancellor Vexstar requested permission to speak. The chamber fell silent as he walked to the central platform, the same place where he had delivered his speech against humanity just 3 months earlier. "Fellow council members," he began, "we are facing an unprecedented crisis. It appears that the human species had become far more integrated into our civilization than any of us realized." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted accusations and demands for action. Some blamed Vexstar for pushing the restrictions that had apparently triggered this disaster. "Order!" President Zarthel called out. "We must focus on solutions, not blame." Ambassador Veltar stood again. "I propose we send diplomatic missions to every human world. We must negotiate their return immediately." "Agreed," said several other representatives. Within hours, diplomatic fleets were racing toward human space. The first ships arrived at Earth's solar system expecting to find angry humans ready to negotiate. Instead, they found something far more disturbing. Captain Morgul of the Hegemony diplomatic vessel Harmony was the first to reach Earth. His ships scanners detected no human ships in orbit and no response to their communication attempts. "Take us to the human homeworld," he ordered his navigator. As they approached Earth, The planet looked normal from space. The blue oceans and white clouds were exactly as they had always been. But when they tried to contact the surface, they received only silence. "Launch a survey probe," Captain Morgul ordered. The probe descended through Earth's atmosphere and transmitted images back to the ship. The humans' greatest cities were completely empty. New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow showed no signs of life. Streets that had once bustled with millions of people were now silent and deserted. "This is impossible," whispered the ship's science officer. "Where did 12 billion humans go?" Similar discoveries were made at every human world. New California was empty. The Mars colonies were abandoned. The asteroid mining stations were shut down and evacuated. Every human settlement throughout the galaxy had been methodically emptied. The investigation teams found no signs of violence or forced evacuation. The humans had simply packed their belongings and left. Security recordings showed orderly departures with humans loading their possessions onto transport ships before disappearing into space. Most disturbing of all, the humans had taken everything with them. Every piece of advanced technology, every computer system, every manufacturing tool had been removed. They had even taken the furniture and personal items from their homes. Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency council sessions continued around the clock. Intelligence reports painted a picture of complete human evacuation that had somehow escaped the attention of every alien intelligence service. "How is this possible?" demanded Trade Representative Luxstar of the Commerce Guild. 12 billion humans do not simply vanish without anyone noticing. Council Intelligence Director Krelvin stood to address the chamber. "Our investigation suggests the evacuation was planned and executed over several months. The humans used standard trade routes and normal shipping schedules to avoid detection." "But where did they go?" asked Ambassador Veltar. "We do not know. Our long-range sensors show no trace of human ships anywhere in the galaxy. They have simply disappeared." The economic reports grew worse by the day. The Krillian Empire reported the first casualties from medical supply shortages. The Vrex Syndicate's mining worlds were shutting down, leaving thousands of workers unemployed. The Altarian food distribution system was collapsing, threatening famine across their territory. High Chancellor Vexstar stood in his private office, staring out at the Zephyrian capital city. Half the buildings were dark because the power grid was failing without human-maintained equipment. His economic advisors had informed him that the Zephyrian Republic would face complete economic collapse within 6 months. His communication device chimed with an incoming message. The display showed it was from the Galactic Council's Emergency Committee. "High Chancellor," came the voice of President Zarthal, "we need to discuss immediate action. The situation is getting worse every day." Vexstar activated the video connection. He could see the stress and fear in the hegemony leader's eyes. "What do you propose?" Vexstar asked. "We must find them. We must bring them back. The galaxy cannot survive without the humans." Vexstar felt a chill run through his body. 3 months ago, he had stood before the council and called humans a threat to galactic civilization. Now he was learning that humans were not a threat to civilization. They were civilization. The council that had voted to restrict humanity was now facing the possibility that their decision had destroyed everything they had built over thousands of years. The quiet humans had taught them a lesson they would never forget. Captain Zarkal of the Hegemony Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Justice as his search fleet prepared to depart Nexus Prime. Behind him, 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy formed up in perfect formation. Their mission was simple: find the missing humans and bring them back. "All ships report ready for departure," announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Velmorian. "The search fleet is fully operational." Zarkal studied the star charts displayed on his main screen. The search area covered the entire galaxy and beyond. Somewhere out there, 12 billion humans had vanished without a trace. "Begin with the Outer Rim territories," he ordered. "Check every system that humans ever visited." The fleet moved out. At maximum speed, their sensors scanning space for any sign of human activity. Other species had launched their own search missions. The Vrek Syndicate sent mining ships to check asteroid fields. The Centauri Federation deployed their exploration vessels to survey distant star systems. After 2 weeks of searching, Captain Zarkal's fleet had found nothing. Every human colony world was empty. Every human space station was abandoned. Every human ship had simply disappeared. "Captain," called out his science officer, Commander Thexville, "we are receiving a priority message from the archaeological team on New California." "Put it through." Dr. Mulkiran, a Zephyrian archaeologist, appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the empty streets of New Angeles stretched into the distance. "Captain Zarkal, we have made some disturbing discoveries. The humans did not just leave their colonies, they removed everything of value. Every piece of technology, every computer system, even the basic infrastructure has been systematically stripped away." Zarkal leaned forward in his command chair. "What do you mean by everything?" "I mean everything, Captain. The power plants have been dismantled. The water treatment facilities have been removed. Even the public transportation systems have been taken apart and shipped away. It is as if the humans never existed here." Similar reports came in from investigation teams across the galaxy. On Mars, investigators found that the massive industrial complexes had been completely emptied. Every machine, every tool, every piece of equipment had been carefully removed and transported elsewhere. The team investigating Earth made perhaps the most shocking discovery of all. In the archives beneath the Library of Congress, they found evidence that humans had been exploring regions of space far beyond what anyone had imagined. Dr. Kekstar, the lead researcher, transmitted his findings to the Galactic Council. "The human star charts we discovered show exploration data for regions extending 50,000 light-years beyond the galactic rim. They have been mapping space that we believed was empty and unreachable." On Nexus Prime, the emergency council sessions had become a daily occurrence. Each day brought new reports of system failures and economic collapse. The aliens were learning just how dependent they had become on human technology and expertise. Trade Minister Luxstar presented the latest economic analysis to the assembled representatives. "The situation continues to deteriorate. Without human manufactured goods, 17 major trade routes have completely shut down. Unemployment across the galaxy has reached 30%. High Chancellor Vextar sat in his assigned seat listening to report after report of disaster. The confident leader who had proposed restrictions on humanity now looked tired and defeated. "What about alternative suppliers?" asked Ambassador Veltar. "Surely other species can produce the goods that humans were providing." "We have investigated that option," Luxstar replied. "The humans were not just suppliers, they were innovators. Much of the technology they provided was far more advanced than anything other species possess. We cannot simply replace them." Council President Zarthol called for a special intelligence briefing. Intelligence Director Krelvin stood before the assembly with a grim expression. "Our investigation has revealed the true scope of human capabilities," he began. "The technology we found in abandoned human facilities suggests they were far more advanced than we ever realized." He activated a holographic display showing images from the abandoned research stations. These quantum fold drive systems could transport ships across distances that would take our fastest vessels centuries to travel. The humans could reach any point in the galaxy in a matter of days. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Not only had the humans disappeared, but they possessed technology that made them essentially unreachable. "Furthermore," Krelvin continued, "we have discovered evidence of human weapon systems that are generations ahead of anything in our databases. They were not the primitive species we believe them to be." Ambassador Veltar stood up. "Are you saying the humans could have fought back against our restrictions but chose not to?" "That appears to be correct. They had the military capability to resist, but instead chose to simply leave. The search fleets continued their desperate mission for months. Captain Zarkal's ships ventured further into space than any hegemony vessel had ever traveled. They found nothing but empty space and distant stars." "Captain," reported his navigation, Officer, we have reached the edge of our operational range. The ships need to return for refueling and resupply. Zarkal stared at the star charts showing the vast emptiness beyond the galaxy. Somewhere out there, the humans had found new homes. Somewhere beyond his reach, 12 billion people were building a new civilization. Set course for home, he ordered reluctantly. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council was facing a new crisis. Medical facilities across the galaxy were reporting critical shortages of essential medicines. The Krillian Empire had already lost thousands of citizens to diseases that could have been easily treated with human-manufactured drugs. Dr. Hexmiran, the galaxy's leading medical researcher, addressed the Council with desperation in his voice. We have tried to reverse engineer the human medical compounds, but their chemistry is beyond our understanding. They were decades ahead of our medical science. Similar problems plagued every aspect of galactic civilization. Communications networks were failing without human encryption systems. Transportation grids were breaking down without human navigation computers. Manufacturing facilities were shutting down without human-designed components. The Altarian food distribution system had collapsed completely, leading to rationing on dozens of worlds. The Tau Collective's energy production had dropped by 60% without human fusion. Reactor technology. High Chancellor Vexstar received daily reports from his own territory showing the accelerating decline of Zephyrian civilization. Cities were going dark as power grids failed. Hospitals were closing as medical equipment stopped working. Trade had ground to a halt as transportation systems broke down. He stood in his office, looking out at the Zephyrian capital, where half the buildings now stood empty and dark. His aide, Sub-Chancellor Roltek, brought him the latest casualty reports. The medical crisis has claimed another 1,000 lives this week, Roltek reported quietly. The public is demanding answers. Vexstar closed his eyes. 3 months ago, he had convinced the Council that humans were a threat to galactic peace. Now he understood that humans had not been a threat at all. They had been the foundation upon which galactic peace was built. Prepare a message to the Galactic Council, he said finally. Tell them the Zephyrian Republic formally requests that all restrictions on humanity be immediately rescinded. Tell them we will offer any terms necessary to bring the humans back. Roltek nodded and left to prepare the message. Vexstar remained at his window, staring out at his dying civilization and wondering if it was already too late to undo the terrible mistake they had made. In the depths of space, the search fleets continued their futile mission, chasing ghosts across the vast emptiness between the stars. 1 year had passed since the humans disappeared, and the galaxy had learned to fear the silence they left behind. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council building stood half empty as many species could no longer afford to maintain their delegations. The crystal halls that once echoed with confident voices now carried only whispers of desperation. Council President Zarthal sat in his private office, reviewing reports that painted the same grim picture day after day. The Krillian Empire had lost 30% of its population to medical crises. The Vrex Syndicate's economy had collapsed completely. The Centauri Federation was rationing basic supplies as their manufacturing capacity continued to decline. His aide, Secretary Wexmar, entered with the latest intelligence briefing. Sir, our long-range reconnaissance has detected something unusual. In the void beyond the galactic rim, Zarthal looked up with interest. What kind of something? Energy signatures consistent with large-scale industrial activity. The signals are coming from regions we previously believed were empty space. How far beyond the rim? Approximately 45,000 light-years, sir. Far beyond the range of any known technology except ... except human fold drives, Zarthal finished. They found something out there. Meanwhile, in the vast emptiness beyond the galaxy, humanity was indeed thriving. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Terra Station, watching cargo ships move between the orbital platforms and the planet below. In just 1 year, the humans had built a civilization that surpassed anything they had left. Behind the world below was a paradise of blue oceans and green continents. Cities of gleaming towers rose from fertile valleys. Spaceports bustled with activity as ships carried goods and people between the dozens of human worlds that now dotted this region of space. "Daily production reports, Captain," announced Administrator Carol Davis as she joined him at the observation window. "Industrial output is up 15% from last month. Agricultural yields exceed all projections." Jake smiled as he watched a massive cargo ship depart for one of the outer colonies. "Any word from the exploration fleets?" "Captain Morrison's survey teams have identified 43 more star systems suitable for colonization. All of them are rich in resources and completely uninhabited. The aliens never imagined space could extend this far." "Their loss is our gain," Carol replied. "We have room to grow for 1,000 years without ever approaching capacity." President Helen Davis had established the new human capital on New Terra, a world that made Earth look small and poor by comparison. Her office in the presidential complex overlooked a city that housed 10 million people in comfort and prosperity that exceeded anything in the old galaxy. Her chief of staff, Director Mike Chun, brought her the daily briefings from the intelligence services. "Our long-range monitoring stations are detecting increased alien activity near the galactic rim. It appears they are trying to locate us. Are they getting close?" President Davis asked. "Not even remotely. Their ships lack the range to reach our territory. The closest they have come is still 20,000 light-years away." President Davis walked to the large window that offered a view of the thriving city below. "What about their messages? Still arriving daily? The Galactic Council, the Hegemony, the Zephyrian Republic, and dozens of other species are all sending increasingly desperate pleas for us to return." "Let me see the latest one." Mike activated a holographic display showing a message from High Chancellor Vextar. The Zephyrian leader looked haggard and desperate as he spoke. "To the human government, wherever you may be," Vextar began. "The Zephyrian Republic humbly requests your return to galactic civilization. We acknowledge that our previous policies toward humanity were misguided and harmful. We are prepared to offer full membership in the Galactic Council, unlimited expansion rights, and complete autonomy for all human territories." The message continued with increasingly desperate offers: military protection, exclusive trade agreements, territorial concessions, and even tribute payments. The proud Zephyrian, who had once called humans a threat, was now begging for their return. "How many similar messages have we received this month?" President Davis asked. 217. "From various species and organizations? The offers keep getting more extravagant." President Davis had seen enough. Prepare a response. "What should we tell them, Madam President?" "Nothing. Delete the message and ignore it like all the others." In her private study, former Ambassador Lisa Carter worked on historical records of humanity's time in galactic civilization. She had been appointed as the new Secretary of State for Humanity's Independent Government. Her job was to ensure that future generations understood why their ancestors had chosen to leave. Her assistant, Dr. Nancy Brooks, brought her the latest batch of alien messages. Another 50 requests for negotiation arrived today. Some of them are offering to make humans the dominant species in the galaxy. Lisa laughed bitterly. 6 months ago, they voted to restrict us to dead worlds. Now they want to make us rulers of the galaxy. Should we respond to any of them? No, we gave them our answer when we left. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. The thriving human colonies continued to expand across their new territory. Captain Amy Thompson's construction fleets were building new settlements faster than the population could fill them. Admiral Chris Parker's defense forces patrolled space that was richer in resources than the entire Milky Way galaxy. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, Director Ryan Murphy oversaw manufacturing facilities that produced goods far superior to anything humans had made in the old galaxy. Without the restrictions and interference of alien governments, human innovation had exploded into technologies that seemed almost magical. "The new quantum computers are ready for distribution," reported his chief engineer, Dr. Susan Walsh. "Processing power is 1,000 times greater than anything we had before." "What about the medical research?" Dr. Foster's team has developed treatments for diseases that plagued humanity for centuries. Life expectancy in the colonies now exceeds 150 years. The prosperity was not just material. Human culture was flourishing in ways that had been impossible under alien oversight. Artists created works that celebrated human achievement, rather than trying to appeal to alien sensibilities. Scientists pursued research that benefited humanity rather than conforming to galactic standards. Back in the Milky Way, the collapse continued. The Galactic Council had been forced to relocate to a smaller facility as member species could no longer afford their participation fees. Trade had declined to levels not seen in 1,000 years. Technological advancement had essentially stopped without human innovation. High Chancellor Vextar stood in his palace on the Zephyrian homeworld, looking out at a city where half the buildings stood empty and dark. His civilization was dying. Slowly, and he knew it was his fault. His aide brought him the daily casualty reports. Another 500 lost to the medical crisis. The public health system is completely overwhelmed. Vextar closed his eyes. Any response from the humans? None. Sir. They continue to ignore all our messages? Keep sending them. Maybe someday they will find it in their hearts to forgive us? But forgiveness was not something humanity was considering. In the presidential palace on New Terra, President Davis met with her full cabinet to discuss the future of human civilization. The question before us, she said, is whether we should ever re-establish contact with the galaxy we left behind. Secretary of Defense Paul Wright spoke first. Our intelligence suggests that several alien civilizations are on the verge of complete collapse. They pose no threat to us. That is not the point, replied Secretary Carter. The question is whether they deserve our help after what they tried to do to us. They voted to limit us to dead worlds, added Chief Science Officer Dr. Foster. They saw us as a problem to be contained rather than partners to be valued. President Davis looked around the table at her advisors. The galaxy taught us that we were better off alone. Out here, we have found freedom, prosperity, and peace. Why would we ever want to go back? The meeting ended with the same conclusion they had reached every time this topic arose. Humanity had found something better than the galaxy they left behind. They had found a future where they could become whatever they chose to be without limitation or interference. The aliens could keep their failing civilization and their desperate messages. Humanity had moved on to something greater. In the vast expanse of space beyond the galactic rim, 12 billion humans continued building a civilization that would have been impossible under alien rule. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting your enemies, but from simply walking away and building something better without them. The council chambers on Nexus Prime would forever echo with the absence of the quiet species that had once sat in the corner, taking notes and asking polite questions. The aliens had finally gotten what they wanted, a galaxy without humans. They just had not realized that the galaxy without humans was a galaxy without hope.